Hey everyone, welcome back to BioNexus Health Podcast series Autism Uprooted. Today we are traveling to Belgium and speaking with autism mom Andrea, the wonderful Andrea. Andrea, an author, have had quite the journey. One of the important things that I wanted to mention with today's podcast is, how similar author's journey was to my son Brian's around the same age. Many children on the spectrum have underlying medical issues and often have actual physical manifestations of what's going on underlying. Like, for example, Arthur and Brian both have had similar issues with losing the use of their legs. And Brian was in a wheelchair for a few years, as many of you know, and additionally a lot of aches and pains, in deep pain in the body. Now, children being nonverbal are not able to express what is going on. So what do? There is self-injurious behaviors, there is head banging, there is biting. There is aggression as well, because they're not able to explain, that, the head hurts or the back hurts, the legs are tingling, the legs are burning. It's just, they just don't have the words. So it's very important that as autism mothers and fathers, as autism parents, we understand that there could be other issues going on that we may not be aware of, or that is not explained by conventional practitioners, by conventional medical practitioners out there. I remember in 2012, which actually helped me on my journey as well, there was a huge study that was done and published and presented at a conference. That's how I heard about it. This was a special needs teacher whose own son in Oregon, USA, was in a special needs classroom, an autism classroom. And what they did was they collaborated with a very well-known neurologist. Maybe it was a psychiatrist, but either ways, neuropsych, a professional, an MD. And what they found was 37 of the 92 students in the couple special needs classroom in the school district, they ended up having underlying medical issues and a lot of aches, pains, and neuropathy. And one of the significant symptoms that completely vanished was the hand flapping behaviors. Now, hand flapping, think about it, right? If you have neuropathy, what do you get? There are underlying infections, and many infections can go after the nerves, especially Lyme disease can go after your nerves, and you end up with symptoms of neuropathy, right? There's a lot of research which has been published about this. So tingling, numbness, pain. Now, tingling and numbness, what do you think about first? You think about, imagine your foot going to sleep. What do? You kind of shake your leg, or you kind of stomp your foot on the floor to get rid of that tingling, numbness sensation, right? It's commonly known as the foot went to sleep. Well, what if the hands went to sleep? So that's something that was a very significant find, that flapping of the hands can be a symptom of underlying neuropathy, and that troubling symptom vanished. So, all right, let's talk to Andrea. Andrea is wonderful. She's articulate, highly educated, very involved with her son, her only child, Arthur. And let's go ahead and hear what Andrea has to say now.
Welcome to the BioNexus Health Podcast with Dr. Jody A. who holds a PhD in integrative medicine, is board certified in integrative pediatrics, an internationally recognized pioneering clinician, and author. And now here's your host of BioNexus Health Podcast, Dr. Jody A.
Hello, Andrea. How are you? How is Belgium today?
I'm very good. It's very cold and rainy. It's the winter here. So,
Yes. Well, actually, it's funny. We are having these tremendous storms and floods in California, and those clouds have come all the way to the East Coast for us because same thing here. It's cold and cloudy and kind of rainy. We might even get some snow.
Well, so I'm not going to complain because I think you have it a bit worse than me.
Yes, yeah. So yeah, because I was wondering, why is it so dark on your end, but it's after 3 o'clock where you are, right? So no
Yes,
wonder it's a little dark.
exactly. Yeah. And these days we are experiencing darkness starting 4:30 in the afternoon. So yeah, soon it's
Okay,
going to get dark here.
okay. All right. So, well, thank you so much for being here. I did a little bit of an introduction, about yourself and Arthur and Brian as well, and the some of the similarities
Okay.
which are there. So let's hand it over to you. Can you tell me what symptoms did Arthur have that were troubling you that brought you to BioNexus?
Yes, of course. Well, first of all, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I hope my podcast will give some hope to other parents in my situation, as most of your other podcasts are giving hope to me. And basically, yes, Arthur's case is quite similar to Brian's, especially when it comes to motor issues. We've always had problems with Arthur and his motor skills ever since he was born, if I can say so. But we only acknowledge it when he was around 6 months old. And, around that age, kids are starting to move around. They are able to sit unattentively. And we've noticed that Arthur was not reaching any of those milestones. So already back then, we had our question marks and we wouldn't stop asking our pediatrician. And then later on, we saw some specialists and we realized that was the first major red flag for us. So at first, we had no idea about autism. At first, we were very scared and always wondered, will Arthur ever walk? Will Arthur ever be able to sit without our help? And in fact, this is what brought me to you, because a good friend of mine, Alexandra from UK, who's also now a patient of yours, read your book and she knew my struggle and the questions I had about Arthur and his motor issues. And she said, I really think there is a book you should read. And I trusted her. I bought your book. And from the very first pages, I understood that you are a doctor I should see. So I contacted your office immediately. And I got an appointment a few months later. And this is how our adventure started.
Ah, right. So yes, Alexandra, she is in the UK.
Yes.
She's done a podcast with me as well recently. Her son Philip is doing really well as well.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. So she read my book and she asked you to read. Oh, such a small world. Wow.
In fact, Alexandra and me, we've never met physically, you see. We've only known each other virtually through the autism of our kids, but immediately a connection started there because we have many similarities. We became very good friends, and it's now maybe over a year, maybe even 2, that we are friends, but we've never actually met, but we keep in touch very regularly. And she knew my struggles with Arthur and how worried I am about the fact that he was not walking normal. He was not able to jump. He was not able to run. And I kept questioning myself, what is it that makes my kids so different? Because I've met many kids with autism and none of them had these particularities. And as she knew my struggles, she said, I think you need to read this book and maybe you should consider seeing this doctor. So this is what brought me to you. It's thanks to her.
So what were some of the autism symptoms? And at what age was Arthur diagnosed with autism? And what were some of the autism symptoms?
The symptoms were the classical ones. The fact that he was not having eye contact, he was not responding to his name, the lack of language as well. But in the beginning, we were a bit blinded by these motor issues, if I say so, that we couldn't really see through that there were other issues developing. We were so worried, and we've seen so many specialists to understand why our son was not able to sit and walk, that we kind of disregarded the rest. However, when he was maybe one and a few months, this is when we started understanding as well, but wait a minute, his language is not really developing either. And the first, I mean, we've also noticed at home that he wasn't really looking at us. But then it really struck us when one day we picked him up from the kindergarten, and the teacher, I think she was trying to send us a subtle message. And she said, "Oh, you are such a sweet boy. I wish I knew why, however, you never want to look at me when I talk to you." And it was a bit as if she put the dots on the E's, you know, because we already noticed, both me and my husband, but it's a bit like we didn't want to acknowledge it. We didn't want to make a case out of it because we were already so worried about the motor issues.
Yeah,
And this is when I remember my husband came home and he told me, "You know what the teacher said today?" And when I heard that, I said, "You know, I think both you and I, we know that, but we kind of didn't want to acknowledge it or to look into it." And this is when we took the decision to go and see a neuropediatrician. And basically the diagnosis came maybe 6 months later. It took us a bit of time to make the appointments and to get a diagnosis. So he was diagnosed when he was roughly 2.
2, okay. Okay.
Which is quite good, because normally in Belgium and in other countries, I'm sure as well, it takes quite a while before a child gets a diagnosis.
Yes, that is true. You know, getting appointment itself can be a bit of a long wait for a while. I mean, look who's talking, right? Sometimes my appointments take many months. So it's just.
It wasn't me who said so.
I know. Well, sometimes I work, 7 days a week, and
it's still not enough.
It's still not enough. It ends up being like a 4 to 6 month wait sometimes for people. But I'm working on it. I'm working on training a few practitioners in what I do.
Oh, that's great. That's right. Great.
And in about another 5 or 6 years, we shall have Brian graduating medical school, and he'll take over as well. So that'll be a big help.
That's fantastic. Like, I'm looking forward, I can already see the story, and I think he will give hope to so many parents, a bit like, look where I used to be and look who I am today. So that's really a story that gets me very emotional. Even now I have tears in my eyes, because I think thinking about the future of our autistic kids, it's one of the major worries for all parents. And to see Brian, like, I get so much hope. And I could only wish that one day Arthur will get maybe even half as far as Brian did, and I would still be happy.
That shall be the goal. Yes, absolutely. Yes. One mom the other day, she mentioned to me that Brian has more experience with autism than I do. So I'm like, that's true. I'm just an autism mom. And he is someone who's been through it all, the pain, the aches, the suffering, the autism, the language barrier, all of these things, the social issues, the bullying at school, all the challenges that he has faced with, being exposed to mold, having all these special accommodations and lawyers, for college. So no one takes advantage of him. People understand, having to be the only one who hasn't taken any shots for a long, long time. So yeah, he's been through it all. And so she was right, I guess. He's going to understand children and families on the spectrum better than I do.
Can you imagine the strength that this will give him as a doctor? I mean, having experienced everything on his own, I think he's just going to make an amazing physician.
Yes, there is a lot of hope, after, I don't know if I can ever retire per se, but when I do think of retiring, all of my little patients will be older, and all the parents feel very happy that there is going to be someone as they get older, for their children who will understand the unique medical issues, because all of our children on the spectrum are, because of what they have, all of the patients in my practice, which is thousands around the world over the years, and they all have underlying pretty serious medical issues, as as well, looking at the number of specialists that you have visited like us. And those who have become aware, I'm glad, that there are thousands around the world who are now aware that there are underlying serious medical issues, which can cause a lot of chronic illness as the children get older. Andrea, which is why in one of the things that I absolutely do not recommend, having gone through it myself, is any kind of invasive treatment. Any kind of IVIG, FMT, whatever, cells, etc. I don't see the need, because what I found was, these are all mostly Band-Aids, right? You just throw some cells, you kind of throw some IVIG at the child, and you will see some children see results because it reduces inflammation, but it doesn't really address the underlying issue. And all living organisms, what do? They grow. They have a reproductive cycle. And, if we don't address the underlying issues, if we don't investigate, and we don't get rid of all of these underlying triggers, people have to understand that the organisms keep growing, they keep reproducing. One question that was asked to me was, I did some IVIG, I did some cells, now I would like to do hyperbaric, like one Band-Aid after another, right? So I was like, think about this. After any treatment, you want to go for hyperbaric, okay? What happens to a living organism when you give oxygen? What happens?
It will keep on growing, right?
Exactly. Yes, not all living organisms are aerobic, but yes, the underlying issues, if the organisms are aerobic, not anaerobic, they will grow. So you have to rule out what is going on. You have to investigate, you have to rule out, you have to eliminate any underlying microbial issues that are aerobic before you just go for HPOT. Autism has become this worldwide business, and there are actually centers and hospitals that have no personal experience with autism, but they are offering all of these treatments. Oh, you can detox, oh, you can do oxygen, you can do this, that, all under one roof, and it's just mind-boggling to me. And
as you said, it's a business, doctor. It's a business, so it will be recommended because there will be major financial implications.
Yes.
And I couldn't agree with you more, because as you might recall from the filling document that I started with, the document that I had to fill in before my first consultation.
Yes.
I'm one parent who did most of what you just mentioned, and I realized a bit too late that I've actually started on a wrong foot. We've actually started treating Arthur's autism with stem cells.
Oh, right, yes.
Because we didn't know any better. Because as a autism parent, you get paralyzed by a diagnosis. You have no idea what has gotten into you. You ask for solutions. You are told that there are no solutions, that you should simply accept that your child is different and the future will not look very bright. And basically you're desperate. Anything anybody is trying to sell you, you're just gonna pay whatever price in a
Oh,
hope
yes.
that it's gonna help your child. So I remember me and my husband, without hesitation, signing a contract of many thousands of dollars to do these stem cells without even asking for too many questions or extra informations, because we were convinced that this is going to give our son a chance to have a better future. And yeah, I was also recommended chelation, and we've tried it. I was also recommended hyperbaric. That, thank God, we haven't tried. All sorts of other things that now when I look back, I regret. But at that time, I didn't know any better. And I would do anything to give myself
a chance.
A chance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Andrea, I'm right there with you. I was a first-time mom and I was an immigrant in a whole new country, right? We actually think the Americans have it all figured out. I mean, sure, there is many advantages to being here. Of course, I should say that it's been a blessing, but we didn't get any help from the conventional medical system. 19 specialists. We had people telling us maybe Brian was pretending for attention.
Yeah,
he can't walk. Right, he can't. So it was mind-boggling, and I tried the same thing. For one IVIG, I remember we had to travel. First of all, there is travel involved with the child.
Yeah, always.
Yes, with the child who's not feeling well, who has dietary issues, who has anxiety and fear, has a lot of challenges getting on an airplane. Sometimes even in a car, long distance car driving but we do it because we want to give them, this is the most aggressive treatment. Sometimes we think, hey, it's the most expensive treatment, so it has to work, right? There is, it must be good, because there are all of these testimonials, and then you actually find out the dark truth behind all of that, marketing and advertisement and whatnot. So we traveled. And I remember I was so desperate. I contacted this IVIG specialist, and he said, "Doc, we are full, but I'm willing to accommodate." So I was like, okay, so we took a flight down. I remember this was Mother's Day in May on 2009. And with Brian, we took a flight, stayed in a hotel. I'm pretty sure, it had a decent kitchen. I'm pretty sure it was moldy. In hindsight, at the time, I didn't know. I was like, okay, IVIG is the number one most aggressive, most expensive treatment for pandas, and this person is the one doing it, at this time, so I should go. And I think it was between $22,000 and $28,000, which we did,
like that.
Right? And we were accommodated, we were squeezed in. And you know what happened? My son was put in a storeroom, not in a hospital room. Okay, this was a surgical center. He was put in, I even have videos. He was put in a storeroom on a stretcher, right? And there were like IV supplies around. And there was this IVIG pole on which the IVIG was put there. And he was given that over a period of 2 days, we had side effects, brain inflammation, swelling, and what have you. Oh my gosh. And there was tremendous stir up. And it ultimately shuts down your own immune system. All of these invasive therapies, involving any kind of donor cells, even if it is autologous, right? Yeah. It just creates its own set of problems. And anyway, so we did that, and then we also did FMT, and that involves, again, tens of thousands of dollars. And you first have to go for colonoscopy, then you have to go for endoscopy, and my poor son was already skinny, like a skeleton, but you have to induce diarrhea so that they can do colonoscopy properly. Honestly, once I developed the BioNexus protocol for Brian, I'm like, we stopped everything, all travel, all medical practitioners. When I found Stephen Buhner, his wife and partner, Julie, and I started doing mentorship for herbal treatment, herbal medicine. I already had an Ayurvedic and homeopathic background. So I said, let me do Western herbalism. And that just, changed our life. We didn't have to travel all over the country, around the world, and that's what I wanted to bring to other families is you don't have to travel, autism mothers, stay home and we will come to you virtually. We will send everything to you to the best of our ability. So testing, supplements, medicines, treatments, we will together, we will make arrangements. So you don't have to subject your child to anything invasive, not even blood testing.
And this was our case, because just like you, I've tried so many doctors, I've tried so many invasive treatments. As you said, there was always traveling involved, airplanes, cars, hotels, all sorts of conditions. But also I remember I was so desperate that basically I enrolled myself on so many Facebook pages and all sorts of autism groups. And I remember that basically every time anybody will mention the slightest improvement that they saw in some of the issues that we were facing, like speech or motor issues, they would name all sorts of supplements. I will just rush to the internet and just buy everything and just try it randomly on my kid. So basically what you brought to us was really this peace of mind and relaxation. Now I tell everybody, look, I'm following Dr. Dashour's protocol and that's it. I don't need to run and look all over the internet looking for a solution. I have the solution. I just need to apply it. I just need to have the patient and trust the process. And that for me was a major help, doctor, because you know what they say, like if the parents are not good themselves, how can we actually help our children? I remember waking up in the middle of the night, shivering and having like anxiety attacks, thinking about tomorrow for Arthur. How will that look like? And it was awful. It was awful for me because I was looking for solutions everywhere and I just couldn't find any. So for me, it has been nothing but a blessing since I found you, because I trust your protocol. I trust your method. You've been through this road before me. And now basically all I have to do is just follow your advice. I don't need to go through all the struggle. But I'm totally with you because I've been through exactly what you've just described.
Yes, I understand. It's families go through, whoever travels with the child, families go through the anxiety, they go through the stress, in the excitement of the moment, in the hope that you get that, oh, I'm going to try something, extremely expensive, very dynamic. Let's go see, it's invasive. It must be good. One thing that I did refuse for Brian, Andrea, was methotrexate. We had gone to, out of sheer desperation, can we please get him to walk? And one team of physicians had recommended methotrexate. I'm like, doc, that's chemotherapy. Like, what? No, it's worth a try. It really brings inflammation down, and after that, we discovered this inflammation. There were 11 infections, so many toxins. There was biotoxin illness. There was mold exposure. And you know what? One very important thing is that all of these have long-term issues. Even after treatment, Brian is fully treated, right? We have the labs are clear, everything's good, but there's always re-exposures. And remember that an autoimmune condition like PANS, PANDAS doesn't go away. Lyme disease doesn't go away, right? So you have to understand that your child is going to need vigilance even after he has a full life. right? No one ever gets to 100%. On good days, we are maybe 90, 95 with my son as well, so that is the key, which is why, again, I said, that many moms who heard about Brian joining BioNexus in the future, they are happy that when I retire, there's going to be someone
taking
to look
over
after their children. To look after the children who are older now, because there's going to be another set of not issues. There may be issues, but most important is going to be monitoring, staying on top of a few things that we need to stay on top of. And there will be issues, as they get older, but we know what the underlying causes. So we will be able to help them mitigate those issues at that time, because, and the last thing I want to say on this is one thing that I did not realize back then, because I had not yet discovered mold and, environmental toxins and, the environmental issues that can happen in hotel rooms, in different hospitals and surgical centers that you visit. And, most of them, when I recall, were moldy. And you're there, you have a child who is going through an invasive procedure. Things are exposed and there is mold in that operating room. Like, some of the photographs that I've seen from parents from other countries that have traveled for, various invasive treatments around the world, from inside the OR, they have photographs that show up on the ceiling, that there is black mold around the vent, around the tile, around the air conditioner. Oh my gosh, you have a child's body open there for an invasive procedure, and there is, the entire environment is compromised. Maybe the room where they are staying is compromised. If it is, if you're going to a place that has rain or tropical climate or high humidity, you have to be careful. So I didn't know this. So I don't know how many times, inadvertently we were exposed. And when we ended up becoming mold aware, I mentored with Dr. Shoemaker and Dr. McMahon, learned a lot. And that's when we did the labs and we were like, oh my God, look at the amount of environmental toxins in his body.
But I think many parents and people in general, they're really still not aware of the influence that mold has on the health. As mentioned to you before, there's a lot of mold, for instance, in my son's school. And now I kind of make it a bit my little mission to make the director aware, because there is a small school, but there is also a kindergarten. So we're talking maybe 30 kids in total, some of them very small. And I can only imagine how they're going to be affected in the future about such an environment. So now I'm trying to find a solution and help them out, because they are a small school, it's a private school. So I'm aware that they do not have the funds, but I'm sure I'm gonna find a way to help them out and make them first of all aware of the importance of cleaning the environment, because it's not negligence. It's not that they don't want to. It's just that they didn't have a clue. Right. That this could be, influencing negatively the children in any way. And I think it could be the case in many countries with many.
Yes, I agree. I remember the incident where for Brian's high school, throughout elementary, Brian was affected all the way through schooling, right? All the way from first grade onwards. Up until now, even in college, we have his accommodations plan, which has transferred to college, right? If he needs to use a scooter to kind of travel between the buildings, because carrying this heavy backpack on his back and walking everywhere, it's not because Lyme disease and co-infections leave some permanent injury, and we have musculoskeletal issues with the back and the neck. So we have accommodations for that. So I remember air purifiers in every classroom has always been one of the accommodations that we have received from the schools and the school district. And of course, at our expense, which was fine with me. So all of Brian's teachers in the classroom actually reported themselves, they were feeling better.
Yeah.
And they said, and some of the mothers at parent-teacher conferences, when you go in, you actually meet other parents. And some of the moms were like, I noticed that you've put an air purifier. We were made aware it was Brian, and my son's asthma hasn't flared up as much.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Yeah,
I'm actually thinking of the classmates of Arthur, because they are all of them with autism. And I would be very curious to see how this, if we manage to implement it, how this will actually improve their condition. And maybe this will bring some awareness to their parents to actually test them. Because, until I started testing Arthur, I also believed my pediatrician and my neuropediatrician telling me, this is autism. There's nothing you can do. Just live with it and make sure, you accommodate it the best you can. And when we started testing, I was absolutely shocked to discover all the underlying medical issues, as you said. And maybe by putting simply an air purifying in the classroom, they will see that the kids are improving, and maybe they will come and question or ask me certain things. I hope this will happen, and maybe I will bring a bit of awareness and kind of guide them to do a bit of what I did. Yes. Who knows? Maybe that will influence not just Arthur's life, but also his classmates' lives. I hope.
Yes, that is the amazing effect of educated, well-researched autism mothers and fathers. That is, we end up touching the lives of so many. It's such a blessing. It's like, destiny. Which is, with you being here today, it's not every mother is brave enough to speak out. I've asked so many, and because of, they have own individual restrictions that they are not able to speak out, even though they know it is going to help so many mothers around the world. So I'm very grateful, that mothers like you are out there who are able to, share their stories and give hope to many, because many are not able to, mostly because of cultural issues and whatnot, even though they want to. So it's just, so let's do this. I'm really glad to see you relaxed, with a smile on your face. You have some spare time for yourself now. So
yes.
So why is that? Can you talk about the improvements that we have seen, that you have seen with Arthur?
Yes, of course. I would gladly expose this. Well, basically, Arthur has calmed down a lot ever since we started, and I've just actually checked. It's only been roughly 8 months since we started, so we're quite newbies, if I can say so. So Arthur has calmed down a lot. His sleep has improved tremendously. I remember in the very beginning when we started, Arthur was waking up maybe 4-5 times per night, which meant that the next day I was like a zombie. I actually do not know how I was managing to carry on, because I also have a full-time job. So it was quite difficult for me. And I remember one of the first improvements that we saw was that I think we were maybe 2 weeks with the first protocol. And I recall counting my blessings, because we had one Saturday morning when he slept until 9:30. So it had been ages that we were woken up by Arthur, even in the weekends at 6:30 in the morning, because obviously he didn't make the difference between school day or weekend. And I remember that was the first moment when I said, wow, this is actually starting to work. And Also, his motor skills improved tremendously already with the first protocol. But sadly for us, if you recall, he fell at some point, and that took a bit of a regress. But now I think we are back on track. Then also I see Arthur generally very happy, very relaxed. When he's coming home, I remember before when he was coming home from school, and I was looking at the time, and I was like, okay, Arthur should come home anytime soon. I would have like a little a bit of anxiety, if I could say so, thinking, oh my God, how is the rest of the evening going to look like today? There were days like that. Some were better, but some were quite bad. Now I'm very excited because every day I hear about new progress that happened, and I'm super excited. Yeah, I'm super excited to read his notebook from school to see, oh my God, what good thing did you do today? So that's fantastic. Another major accomplishment, if I could call it like that, is because we've started potty training with Arthur, whom, I mean, he's 7 now, so it was about time. We started already a few months ago, and then we were still at, going by the clock every 30 minutes, then every hour, then every 2 hours. And then all of a sudden, Arthur refuses to sit on the toilet. And at first I was very scared because I was like, oh my God, now he doesn't want to sit and do it anymore. Instead, you know what he did? He just removed the toilet reductor seat and just peed standing.
Oh, wow, that's great.
So I was like, okay, where is this coming from? So I asked the school, I said, did you train him? They said, no, I didn't train him. So nobody actually trained him. It just came natural like that. Maybe, as you know, the inflammation is going down, or at least that's my own assumption. I guess he's observing more the environment. He's developing imitation skills. And most probably he must have seen other boys in his school doing it like that. And now he just wants to show that he's a big boy and he can do it as well. So only that, and our life is so easy nowadays, because imagine going somewhere with a toilet reductor, and also always looking at the watch. Oh my God, it's toilet time, and you don't have a toilet anywhere near you. So basically we were a bit homebounded. We couldn't really leave the house, and we said, well, so be it, we're just gonna do it until the process is finished. But now basically it's absolutely fine. And he's also showing when he needs to go. Okay. So that also helps a lot. We are under the supervision of an ABA coordinator. And when I told her, she was absolutely shocked, because these were the next step in the process we were considering that he wasn't ready to take in yet. And he's already ahead of the process, basically. So we are super happy for that. Then he's very focused in school. We got some very good reports. Not only that he's focusing, but also that he's very willing and eager to participate in all the activities that are proposed to him. His fine motor skills had improved tremendously. We've started with Arthur eating with a spoon. Now Arthur is using a fork, and he's using it really properly. Basically, because of his problems, he wasn't able to hold the fork, not to mention to actually put anything in the fork. But now that's completely gone. I've also noticed that lately we put keys in doors that we wouldn't want him to open, because he can be naughty at times. Basically now I've noticed that he's actually able to turn the key and open it.
Oh goodness, okay.
So basically now we cannot keep him away from, I don't know, his favorite toys or whatever. He was quite selective with his food. That's no longer a problem either. I don't know. I'm super excited because I see changes in him every day. And another change that I've noticed just in the past week is that he wasn't feeling very well. I think he's a bit under the weather. It's very rainy here. It's very cold. And then one day he came from school and I could see that something was wrong. And then I asked him and I said, Arthur, what is wrong? I was not really expecting an answer. I was kind of like, I always speak to him. And then he just did that, like pointing to his head. And I said, well, this must be a coincidence. So, I just kept it for myself and I kept on going. And then this morning I was putting some magnesium oil that you recommended for his joint pain. And basically he started pointing to his knees because I didn't put it on his knees. And I was like, this is the second time that this is happening. Is it a coincidence? Or is it maybe the fact that he's becoming so aware of his environment that he's really trying to communicate in his own way with me? Also, we are trying to introduce PECs to him, and that had improved a lot. But also what I've noticed lately is that he's really trying to communicate, not necessarily verbally, but by pointing. Or if there's something he wants that I help him with, he will just take me there. Like, for instance, just a few days ago, we have a synthesizer for music for him. And at times we just unplug it. So he just wanted to play with that. So he just took me to his room and showed me the plug like this. Like, mommy, do you mind plugging it for me? And I plugged it and then he started playing his music. And he does this like many, many times throughout the day with everything he needs. He will just come and kind of ask for my help, which for me is amazing because before I wasn't even sure that he was understanding when I was telling him something. Like, I would speak to him, obviously, but I wasn't convinced that my message was received. Nowadays, I was asking Arthur, if you want to watch TV, I cannot find a remote control. And he just brought me the remote. So not only that he's understanding and showing that he understands, but he's also executing like short commands, if I can say so. So we are super excited because we've only been with you in the protocol for roughly 8 months, I calculated. And I think the results are nothing but amazing. So I'm very excited to see what's next.
I don't know how to express my happiness for your happiness.
Thank you so much, Doctor.
Yeah.
Thank you.
From, one mother's heart to another. I can imagine how you feel. So he's able to walk. His motor coordination is good. His fine motor has improved. I remember you had mentioned that, behaviorally, you're able to go shopping with him.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And he does really well. You were able to travel a little bit with him as well. His immune system has improved with the traveling and flights and whatnot. Am I right?
Yes,
that's something you had?
Yeah. We are traveling without problems with Arthur. But then again, airplanes had always been his biggest passion. Like, also when he's playing, he would just love to play with airplanes. He is a frequent traveler, if I may say so. His first flight was when he was 1 month old, and we only stopped during the pandemics. But that nevertheless, there were issues in the airplane. But both me and his dad, we were trying to work things through and not stop flying, because we were aware that if we would stop flying, then basically we would send him the wrong message. Like, okay, if you are behaving this way, that's it, then we're just gonna stop taking you. And we didn't want this to stop us from traveling, because we both love to do that. But in the last flight, I was really, really nervous because I was not traveling with my husband. I was traveling by myself with Arthur, and next to us there was a complete stranger seated. So I arrived and I already felt I was panicking, and I started explaining to this lady kind of apologetically, excuse me, my son, he might be a bit disturbing. He has autism. I hope it's okay and you understand. And she said, yeah, sure, no problem. I have grandkids. It's okay. But Arthur was behaving so well. He was playing the whole time. I took some cards for him and he was busy with his car and his little airplane and his cards, that the lady fell asleep. I mean, what bigger proof you want?
Yes.
She was totally able to relax. What he would normally do, he would just take the little table and open it, close it, kind of bang it all the time. So he would disturb not only the people sitting with us, but also the people in front. I received many comments many times when we are traveling, and most of the time I would not be able to relax, not even for a second. I would literally just hold the little table with my hand so that, it's a bit comfortable for everybody. But no, this last flight was absolutely amazing. He was very patient. He was playing. And the lady even told me in the end, she said, I don't know why you got so apologetic. And, I was really expecting hell on earth, and had such a lovely sleep. So yeah, it was a great experience.
Good. How is his gut?
I have great news on that as well, but I think that is mainly because we've started, as you might recall, the camel milk protocol, and we've also started a new probiotic that you recommended.
Yes.
And basically, when we started with you, Arthur was affected by severe constipation. And we've been fighting with that ever since. And every other day, I would just put a suppository just to release him, because he was experiencing bloating as well a lot. It's now been maybe 10 days that Arthur goes to the toilet regularly without any suppositories. I've only introduced camel milk and this new probiotic that you recommended, and now so far it is going great on that front as well.
You had mentioned that he used to be a very picky eater, and that has improved as well.
Yes, very much so.
Excellent, yes. So it's important that you realize that you can't add anything that is a fad or a trend like camel milk just blindly, because there are so many underlying issues that there is a right time and place to add that in, because it is going to have an effect on the immune system. You can you can see flare-ups and whatnot. So I'm glad, because you mentioned Facebook groups and what have you, and yes, many desperate parents look for answers, and sometimes it looks like something could be an instant success for your child. Just try this, and that's not how it's meant to be done. Language, yes, with Arthur, sorry about that. So with Arthur, we are seeing his listening, his comprehension, self-awareness, all of this has increased, focus, attention, calming down. So these are all grassroots factors that you can, and building blocks that we need to build up on, because when you do root cause medicine, which is what I practice, we look at root causes and then we use completely plant-based treatments. Whatever improvements you see, if they're done in the right order, they stay with you. You will not see lots of regressions and ups and downs. I mean, of course, if you're exposed to a room full of toxins, then yes, there'll be some, but it'll come back, because whatever repair and regeneration is done using neurological herbals, those repairs are real. Whether you do, Brian's and many other patients, the brain MRI, which can be done here at Stanford, right? Specific brain MRI, which looks at brain damage due to environmental toxins. So the MRI has stayed clear. It's not like you have to repeat the MRI, you have to repeat the whole protocol every 6 months and then, no. Once we treated him, it took about 2.5 years, but the brain MRI looked completely normal, not just Brian, even older patients, and it stays normal. That's the thing, because when I had looked at the brain MRI when he was little, it was shocking to me. And 2.5 years after that, when we went back and reran, even the neurologist was blown away. And he's not the only one. I've had patients of all ages, not just, somebody young, so that there is neuroplasticity, the younger. Brian wasn't that young when we started treating environmental issues, biotoxin illness. He was 9 already. It's been many years of slow
exposure.
Yeah. So that's, and there are many, in fact, I have notes here from several neurologists. I think Alexandra in the UK, her neurologist, or maybe it was immunologist, mentioned something as well that, ever since the kids have been on the protocol, the brain MRI has changed for the better. I've had kids with autism in 18 years, 22 years old. I actually remember Colin from upstate New York, 24 years old, and he had already had white plaques in the brain. And what happens after the white plaques? You get MS. So that's how old he was when I first started. And those within 1 year, I think it was 18 months, not 1 year, they disappeared. And the neurologist was blown away. They wanted to put him on these MS drugs, do more testing, do invasive treatments, and whatnot. And Colin's mom refused. She says, no, I'm only going to do herbal. And they laughed at her. They said, oh my God, you're putting his life at risk. We will have to report you. But thankfully, none of that happened. And she stuck to her guns. And, there are Ayurvedic and Western herbals, which can be used for repair and regeneration as well. So I actually had kept several invasive options on the back burner, like, if nothing happens, but we didn't even have to use any speech therapy. We stopped using physical therapy. We stopped using social skills. We stopped ABA way back. And it just came with natural progress with him, just with natural.
As I told you, we were doing ABA. And actually, our therapist left us a few months ago because here in Belgium, you do not find ABA therapist. For some reason, it's not a therapy that has been developed here in the country. So basically, I had to bring somebody from my home country, Romania. And she was with us for a few months, and then she decided she wanted to go back. So when I told you about the potty training that Arthi has been going to, basically when we've noticed that he wants to do it standing, it was not due to ABA anymore, because she was already gone like 2 months before that. It just came naturally. And then me and my husband, we were actually wondering and saying, look, we are paying thousands of euros every month to have an ABA therapist. And look at the progress he just did on his own. When we told the ABA coordinator about this, she said, oh, but that was the next step that we were supposed to get to. And then I said, well, sometimes certain things are just happening, before time, I guess, with the right treatment. Because, I've never made a secret to any of the therapists we're seeing that I'm also following a medical protocol. I've even informed his school. And thank God for me, everybody had embraced it. I mean, nobody ever told me that they would report me or that that causes an issue. So at least from that point of view, I'm quite lucky, because I've been surrounded by people who, although they don't have the right knowledge, they respect my opinion, and they know that obviously I would never hurt my child.
Absolutely. Well, I can't thank you enough for being here today. And I won't keep you any longer. I know you probably have to go get Arthur from school, but
Yes.
you're so wonderful. I could speak with you, mother to mother for a while. So I should let you go.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for everything you did for us. And I really, really have the feeling that one day, Arthur will be another success story for you, because the way things had started, I'm very positive. I'm very optimistic. And thank you for myself, because, you also helped me to resolve all this anxiety that it was in my heart. And I'm sure everybody who has a child with issues share that, unfortunately. So thank you so much. And I hope maybe we're going to have another podcast with even more, how should I say, an even more successful story than we had today.
I certainly hope so. Yes, and we can certainly demonstrate that natural progress does happen with completely natural treatment. You just have to be a little bit patient and allow the body to repair itself.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of today's podcast. I found Andrea to be, like I said in the beginning, right? Absolutely wonderful, isn't she? And as autism moms, it's important that we connect with each other and find ways to pick each other up and, give hope to our families. Thank you for joining me. Till next time, be well. Namaste.
Thank you for joining Master Herbalist Dr. Jody Dashaw, Director of the BioNexus Health Clinic and BioNexus Herbals, on the BioNexus Health Podcast, where we explore and share information and stories about recovering and healing from chronic and environmental illnesses such as mold biotoxin illness, Lyme disease, autism spectrum disorder, fatigue, Crohn's and colitis, mast cell activation syndrome, PANS, and more. Please help us grow our message by subscribing to our podcast channel and sharing the podcast on your social networks. For more information, visit bionexushealth.com.
Information within this video, audio, or text, collectively known as the podcast, has not been reviewed by the FDA. Nothing within the podcast is intended as or should be construed as medical advice. Information is for general informational and educational purposes only. Consumers of the podcast should consult with their healthcare practitioners for medical recommendations. Seek the advice of a qualified healthcare provider. Do not disregard the advice of a healthcare provider based on any information from the podcast. The information within the podcast may contain information concerning dietary supplements or over-the-counter products that are not drugs. Our dietary supplement products are not intended for use as a means to cure, treat, prevent, diagnose, or mitigate any disease or other medical or abnormal condition.